10 o'clock. We're going to go.
Oh, thanks.
I'd like to call to order this October 13th, 2025 Board of Education regular scheduled meeting for Thornapple Kellogg Schools. We are in the ECC in the boardroom. Can we have a roll call of the, roll call of the board, please.
Wenger,
Here.
Smith,
Here.
Brock,
Here.
Hilton, here. Price,
Here.
Stanton, and Hess here.
Pledge of allegiance, please. Flags in the back. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Seeking a motion to adopt the agenda.
I'll make a motion to adopt the agenda as presented.
We got a motion by Mr. Winger and support by Mr. Price. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you, board. Public input. Is there anyone in attendance that would like to make public comments? Is there anyone that would like to speak? All right, if you do choose, we'll have another public input at the end of the meeting. We'll close this public input at this time. That moves us to consent grouping. Any discussion on any of the consent grouping items, or we can go ahead along with a motion?
I'll motion that we approve the consent grouping items as presented.
I'll support.
We got a motion by Mr. Smith and support by Ms. Hess. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
We need roll call for consent grouping.
I'm sorry, Dave, you're saying to add?
We need a roll call.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're saying to,
It's a roll call vote.
roll call vote. Yep,
That's what
go
he
ahead.
said. Okay. Smith,
Yes.
Brock,
Yes.
Wenger,
Yes.
Price,
Yes.
Hilton,
Yes.
Stanton,
Yes.
Hess, yes.
All right, thank you. Board items for action, the TK 2024-2025 audit.
Yeah, good evening. So tonight we have Jeff Strauss, who's the audit principal at Maynard Costerison, looking to present our audit and audit financials for the 24-25 fiscal year. So I'll turn it over to him. And with that being said, I just do want to thank Jeff and his team. First year I've ever used Maynard, but they have been super professional, great communication, and just overall, I think, a really nice job. So turn it over to you, Jeff.
Thank you, Mark. As mentioned, I'm Jeff Strauss. I'm work with the CPA firm Maynard Costerison. We've done the annual audit for Thornapple Kellogg for a number of years now. I want to likewise say, the finance team that we work with year in and year out really does do a really nice job. So it should give the board a lot of confidence that the information you're seeing on a month-to-month basis is quality information and really could give you confidence to be able to make quality decisions as you go through the fiscal year when you're having your monthly meetings. When you go through the packets that I sent in front of you, I've got 4 documents. I'm going to focus on one primarily, but you do have the full set of the audited financial statements, and it is stamped draft, and I'll kind of go over why it's stamped draft here in a little bit. You have 2 letters, one stapled, one's a single sheet. I'll touch base on those a little bit through the presentation, but then a little bit at the end as well. And then you have the document that I'm going to focus on primarily, and it's going to be the booklet or the slide deck that you have in front of us. So we had a lot of things that came out through COVID that probably weren't ideal, especially for schools, made it challenging for a lot of ways. But when we were doing online presentations, we kind of moved to these booklets, and they've really stuck, and I think boards have really enjoyed them because it really hones in on the highlights of the financial information. And if you're not as financially excitable as I might be when it comes to this stuff, it gives you some information that you can just kind of pick up and see what happened during the audit and how the organization did. But turning within a couple of pages within that slide deck or that booklet, I'm going to start on the first page. It really highlights the audit results. So a lot of people in the room, this is going to be maybe as much information as you really want when it just comes to hearing me talk. So you can see what we had from a financial statements. We did issue an unmodified opinion. We did test internal controls, and there's a letter within the financial statements.
Do you happen to have this, the board members asking to share on a screen or just a paper copy?
Oh, no, I don't have the
Electronic copy.
PowerPoint.
Okay.
Yep,
Thanks.
sorry about
Does
that.
everyone have a booklet?
Yeah, we do. I was just
For
wondering
the
about
people.
Others being able to.
We have a few other, handouts as well, if anybody really wants that.
Thank you.
Were you saying for the audience? Is there a need a handout to the audience?
We got a few extra copies.
Thank you.
If anybody
If you
would
would like a copy, maybe just
Look
raise your
at 'em.
hand.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry about
No problem at all.
Thank you, though. I
Yep,
appreciate your
yep.
extra copies.
Yep. And before I jump right into the audit results, I know I mentioned that we are looking at documents that are stamped draft. So the reason they're stamped draft is because we're really working in a very unique situation this current year. The biggest issue that we ran into with the audit this year, and every firm is dealing with this, has to do with the federal government. And for an organization like Thornapple Kellogg, we all know that we've received federal funding. Some of that would have been COVID dollars, some of that would be Title I. You get Child Nutrition Cluster as well for your food service program, as well as Title I, special education, things like that. And what we use to test that part of the audit, there's a guideline called the compliance supplement, and that has not been issued by the federal government yet. And some years, they've allowed us to use the previous version of that compliance supplement. This year, there's been no guidance on that, so we've really had our hands tied. What made it a little more complicated this year is we were dealing with a state shutdown well, maybe not state shutdown, but a potential state shutdown to start this month. And when we were going through our process, we didn't know what the state was going to accept as far as a audit package when you're looking at these financial statements, because all schools have their financial statement packet due November 1st. What has come out within that past budget by the state is that they will accept two separate financial documents. One that is just the financial information, and a separate one that discloses the compliance audit that we have done, and hopefully nothing changes once we have that approved compliance supplement. But the requirement's going to be to submit one financial statement packet to the state of the government, or state of Michigan, and then following up after the compliance supplement is made available to issue that part of the audit at a later time. So we'll still meet the November 1st deadline, but that federal compliance audit isn't going to be part of that. And that's why you're seeing draft, which is very unique. You've never seen a draft financial statement at the board presentation before. But barring any changes on that, everything that I'm talking about is going to be accurate information, and it's an audit that is a clean audit, just like you're going to want to see. So when we point our focus back to the audit results, you can see we did issue an unmodified opinion. There is one extra paragraph within the auditor's opinion for the financial statements this year, and it has to do with the issuance of a new governmental accounting standards board. And when you look at that, they issue, I guess, new guidelines every single year to look at too. And one of the new standards that they issue that was implemented for this year has to do with compensated absences. So we had a change in accounting standard that we disclosed within the auditor's opinion because we had a prior period restatement because of that new accounting standard. It's GASB 101. And all it really did was have a refresh look at what a compensated absence is, how we want to calculate that number, and it required us to issue a restatement and recalculate that balance at the beginning of the year, and then also calculate it for the current year. So that's why you see that extra paragraph within the auditor's opinion. But from a overall control standpoint, you can see we do also look at that. So there's a letter within the financial statements as well that really addresses all of the controls. And we do test that as part of our audit, and if anything did come up, we would issue a finding related to any findings or any problems that came up from a control standpoint. Fortunately for the school, you guys are very, very well run from the financial side of things, and there are no issues that have come up from a control standpoint. The upper right-hand part of that audit results, you can see the major programs, and that's that federal audit that I talked about. So right now, we have tested the special education cluster, and barring no other changes, that's going to be a clean opinion as well. And I don't see anything that's going to change from that standpoint once the finalized compliance supplement is available. The two letters that we also issued are a governance letter. Really, that's a required communication at the completion of our audit. If anything came up, we'd have to disclose that within the governance letter. That's also a very clean letter. And we did issue a management letter. And usually what the management letter would be for, it's going to be a situation that we would either disclose findings, or sometimes it would just be recommendations to the board. That's really not either case when it comes to this management letter. So one other thing that kind of came up during the COVID years was a situation where we were running into excess fund balance within the food service fund. And the reason that occurred was because we went to, by and large, free and reduced for all kids within the school districts. And when that happened, we were getting a lot more revenue that was coming in to the food service fund. There is a guideline that really doesn't want us to have too much food service fund balance, but again, you're in good company with a lot of schools out there, because a lot of schools ended up getting this free and reduced excess revenue. You spent all that money down. If you were already doing some improvements, it got to the point where there was limited number of improvements you could really do at this point, and now you're just kind of running a little bit of an excess food service fund balance. So not really an issue, but it goes back to a more of a historical situation where you didn't receive free and reduced lunch for everybody, and the intent of the special revenue fund wasn't just to accumulate cash. But not a huge issue there, just something that the state of Michigan wants us to put within a management letter for their disclosure. They used to want it as a finding. They got so many findings that they said, we don't want findings anymore, we just want it disclosed in the management letter. Moving on to the actual numbers, you can see that first page we're looking at is a statement of net position. This is going to be your full accrual government-wide financial statement. So as a board, you're used to looking at information at the general fund level or the fund level financials. That's what we would call modified accrual. This snippet is going to be from your management's discussion and analysis part of the financials, the MD&A, and this is again your full accrual. So it brings all of your fixed assets, your buildings, any other capital expenditures that you've capitalized over the years to the face of the financial statements, and also brings any long-term debt. The one other piece that I want to point out here is probably about 10 years ago, we started seeing the MIPSR's plan, or the proportionate share of that pension and OPEB liability, pop up. All that really means is there is a plan out there that's really going to pay the pension for a lot of the teachers or the staff of these school districts within Michigan. And it was an unfunded plan on the pension side of things. This entire duration, from about 2014-15 until now, the OPEB plan went onto the books probably 2 or 3 years later, and it started off as a unfunded plan as well, meaning it had more liabilities or projected liabilities to pay out than it had assets or investments. Last year, that OPEB plan flipped, and you would now have a proportionate share of an asset, not a liability. And that's what you see in that top section there, where you've got about $8.8 million in a proportionate share of that OPEB asset. Not really a big deal, other than the fact that it's a liability that you were forced to put onto your books. The one portion of it, the OPEB piece, flipped to a positive, and the net pension liability is still in a, I guess, unfunded plan situation, and your proportionate share is that $50 million. But when you go down and you look at the overall net position of the district, you can see we had a $29 million deficit. And again, that's all driven by this MIPSR's plan. You had an improvement by about $13 million during the current year. So now that deficit's sitting at $16 million. Starting to see a few schools creep back into a positive net position. And we're improving out here at Thornapple Kellogg, but still just a little bit of a net position deficit. But nothing to worry about on that, because it is due to that MIPSR's plan on the pension side of things. Next slide focuses on the governmental funds like you're used to. This lists each of your funds out separately. The one I'm going to primarily focus on is your general fund. That's that far left-hand column. We've got $15 million in overall assets, largely made up of cash and investments. That's going to be about $8.1 million. And then another $7 million is your state aid, federal receivables that hadn't come in as of 6/30/2025. Have $6.2 million in liabilities, largely AP, accrued wages, accrued retirements, things of that nature, leaving us with a fund balance in the general fund of about $8.9 million. When you look at the next slide, you can see where that compares from the previous year. So to start the year off, we had about $9.1 million fund balance. We added $47 million in revenue and a little more in the way of expenditures and transfers out to other funds. That amounted to about $47.3 million. So at the end of the day for the general fund, we used up about $185,000 of fund balance. But a chunk of that was about $950,000 transferred to an earmarked capital projects fund. When you run that percentage of fund balance against your expenditures, you can see you're at about 19% or just under 19% fund balance. And I only bring that up because there was a point where we were probably at 10, 12% for a lot of schools. And then again, those ESSER, those COVID dollars that came in really boosted fund balance for a lot of districts. I think the state average for the 23-24 year was around 24%. We were around 19 or 20% last year as well. So we're still sitting in a pretty good spot from that standpoint. The next slide deck is a pie chart of the revenues from the general fund. You can see how that's split out. Most of your revenues coming in that orange area, that's going to be, or it looks a little more red on yours, but that's about $37 million in state sources. The other two areas are going to be about 9%, which is going to be local sources. That's largely property taxes. And then your intermediate sources is at $3.8 million, and that's going to be ISD-related dollars that are coming in. So a lot of that Act 18 or other special ed dollars. And you had about $1.5 million in federal dollars, which is really what's requiring that single audit in the current year. On the expenditure side of the general fund, you can see where those are really coming into play. Like all districts, you can see it's split largely between instruction and support services. 58% is instruction, 39% support, and then a few other community service expenditures as well are going to be in there. That was $27 million on the instruction and about $18 million on the support side of things. Next slide gives you a really nice picture of how that ESSER dollars or those COVID funding really helped the district. So when you look at where you were in 2021, we had about $5.8 million in general fund balance. That's increased up to $8.9 million to end the 2025 year, and we saw a pretty steady increase over that time frame, seeing that fund balance really increase to that 19% that it's currently at. I think the one thing to caution just on that now is those dollars are gone. They were fully required to be spent as of September 30, 2024, so there's no more dollars. We were able to supplement regular expenses with those dollars, but now we see some districts that maybe didn't plan as well as they should have for that fiscal cliff when it comes to that loss of spending. Thornapple's not one of those. It's just one thing from a board side of things to really pay attention that we're not seeing a huge usage of fund balance in the upcoming years now that those dollars are gone. As I mentioned on the fund balance percentage earlier in the slide deck, you can see where we were at about 19% to end the 23-24 year for Thornapple Kellogg and ending at about just under 19% at the end of the current fiscal year. That top number is that 24% average for the state last year, but I anticipate that going down a little bit. We just don't have current year information quite yet. But again, those numbers are going to continue to be used up. When we look at those 25-26 budgets, a lot of school districts are budgeting for an initial usage of fund balance as we project that original budget for 25-26. Next slide, just notes of the financials, go through these real quick. We have had an ongoing capital project bond, so we are looking at that on an annual or ongoing basis as required. So we are testing those expenditures that are going out as some of the renovations. We did add about $5.7 million in capital assets during the year. So again, that has to do with the high school renovation. There's some furniture in there as well as some vehicle purchases, buses as well. Long-term debt, haven't taken on any new debt in the current year. Paid down about $7 million in your outstanding bonds during the current year, and you also made a payment on your school and revolving fund, reducing that debt as well. So all really good. I mean, you're not a heavily debt leveraged district by any means. Already talked about the pension liability and the OPEB liability, or OPEB asset previously, but that's detailed out in note 7. I think it's 13 or 14 pages that you can read if you're really tired tonight, or not tired and you're trying to get to sleep tonight. Next one, this is going to be your budget comparison of your general fund. So we do have a new accounting standard coming out next year from a governmental accounting standards board side of things, and it's really going to have some impact on the general fund or any budgets that you may be presenting within the financials. I bring that up because you've got a very, very tight budgeting process. When you look at where you were from an original budget at $47 million, you made a adjustment down on the revenue side of things and came in at about 47 million, just over 47 million budgeted. Your actual was 47.1. That's a $129,000 variance, or less than 1, about 0.25%. Same thing on the expenses. Adjusted that final budget and you came in within $350,000, less than 1% at 0.74. And when you look at everything as a whole, you projected to use up about $666,000 of fund balance, and you actually only use up 185. I only bring this up in a little more detail this year because when GASB 103 comes out next year, it's the first real, I say revamp, but at one point it was going to be a real revamp of the financial statements that you're looking at. Since they initially started coming out with the draft and figuring out what they were going to do with that standard, they've really toned it down a lot. But the budget to actual and the MD&A are still going to see some tweaks. So we are going to be making a little more detailed descriptions of what happened in the MD&A, not just this number went up, provide a little more backup to why something happened. But the budget to actual is going to have a little bit of an impact as well. So not only are we going to have to show variances between where you were from an original budget and where you ended up on a final budget, we're going to have to explain any significant variances. So if we thought we were going to have $47 million and we had a significant change from where we budgeted on your final budget, there's just going to be a footnote disclosure on why that happened. So from a board standpoint, just be aware that they're not necessarily looking at the budget more closely, but they're just adding a few requirements on what needs to be explained. It's kind of yet to be determined on what a significant variance is or what's going to need to be explained, but I would say a general rule might be 10% right now. If you budget a category and you're off 10%, we may have to add a little more of a snippet in there, but that's going to be auditor judgment, and 10% is an easy number to say right now, but that might change from now till next year when we're looking at what we kind of deems going to be a significant number. That's all I had from the slide deck standpoint. I did want to point out just 2 more quick things. I know you have the letters, but you do have the single page. That's the food service fund balance. Again, nothing of concern when it comes to that management letter comment. You're in a situation that a lot of districts are, where it just, I mean, you met a situation where there's a lot more revenue coming into food service than can be spent. And then the governance letter is going to be the 2-page one. Very, very, very clean letter, and exactly what a board wants to see. No issues that came up during the course of the audit. So a little bit longer than I planned on, but we had a few unique things going on this year. Just kind of want to leave you, if nobody has any questions, just saying I really appreciate being able to work with you, and I think like your team's doing a really phenomenal job and giving you a lot of good information and a lot of confidence from a board standpoint. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Jeff. Does anyone have any questions for Jeff?
No, but again, thank you for the pie charts. Those are my favorite.
You know, at one point, I think we thought we might go away from it at some point, but
Please
boards
don't.
liked it so much that It's like, I don't want to see you go through a financial statement that I can't even follow where you're at on, so.
Yes.
Yep.
Thank you, Jeff.
So, thank you very
And
much.
kudos to our business office and Mark and Rob for heading that up. Thank you guys for all the work you do. Getting great comments like this, I hope puts the community's mind at ease. It puts my mind at ease, my financial mind at ease when seeing these great comments from someone like Jeff and his team. So thank you guys and good work.
Thank you. I'm gonna head out. It's my 18th wedding anniversary, so.
Again, congratulations, Jeff.
Congratulations.
Before it's time to put the kids to bed.
All right, Jeff. Thank you. Appreciate it, sir.
Congratulations.
Thank you. All right. Our next item on the agenda is a curriculum office update. Ms. Wonders, do you have that for us? Fantastic. Oh,
For those of you I don't know, I'm Megan Wonders, Curriculum Director as of this year. So it's been a couple months of learning on the run. Just seeing things from a different perspective, having held a couple different roles in the district, it's interesting to take on a different hat and see how it works at a different level and how to work together with all of those different levels that I've worked with it previously. So kind of interesting. My own family and kids have said, so what is it that you do, or what did you do today? And I'm like, no day is the same. Kind of similar to a principal's day, but just involved in things that I didn't necessarily anticipate being involved in, but feel lucky to have the opportunity to support teachers and ultimately just work to support students. So.
Oops, sorry.
thank you, Rob.
Oh, that's something. So, moving on in, my office is curriculum instruction and assessment. So, a lot of what I do, if not all, revolves around those three things, and a lot of coordination with teams and groups around the district to have success in those areas. So, I've put together just to try to capture what it looks like, what I'm working on day to day and over the course of a year. So overseeing various things, one of them being MTSS, which couples along with our PBIS initiatives. So ultimately, working with different levels of support for behavior and academics across the district, and how are we doing that in a positive manner and supporting those efforts and looking at our plans and implementations at all levels within those areas. That can involve group grant funding as well in that area. That trickles into other parts as well. But we also coordinate with our ISD. We just held a meeting last week actually with one of our consultants and worked with our MTSS group to make sure we're on track and how to better support what we're trying to do here at TK. Continuous improvement teams is another department or group that I head up. So I oversee that at the district level, but am involved at the building levels as well. That's with housing our continuous improvement plan, which is also, that gets confused sometimes. It's referred to as continuous improvement and also school improvement. They're shifting into calling it continuous improvement, and we've known it as school improvement here for a long time. It's really the same thing, and what we're working on is that plan of continuous improvement in all of our areas. So overseeing that plan and working with that team. And then staff support, so an example there would be our new teacher network. So for our novice teachers in years 1 through 3, working to support them, provide professional development, support, coaching, whatever it is that they might express a need, or whatever we can bring to them to enhance what they're doing as new educators. Professional development also falls in staff support, so planning of that, and also working with our department chairs and principals on planning our PLC agendas and what's being worked on in those more intimate groups as well. So overseeing that we're all guided going in the same direction. Curriculum responsibilities, another area, so adoption and review of resources, pilot coordination. I'll get into kind of more of these as we move forward, but making sure that we're sticking to our guaranteed viable curriculum that we've developed and having pacing guides. And again, everything is about streamlining into that cohesive vision. And then program supervision, a couple examples would be our EL services, working with our coordinators to make sure we're meeting requirements and compliant with all of that and targeting our students as we need to for the best support. as well as our Title I intervention, so that would be like our reading support at our identified buildings. So just a glimpse of some of the things that we're overseeing out of the curriculum office. So a couple of the things that I talked about were our teams, overseeing teams. So to give you a little vision of, we have a variety of people across the district that are involved. So our continuous improvement or school improvement team, we have representatives from all of the buildings, all of the various grade levels. We include counselors, special education, and then we also have some non-building representatives, myself, Board of Education members, a TK parent or two, and we also have a TK student that is involved. So that is to help oversee our school improvement plan and provide feedback and assist with implementation of that. Another team that I work closely with would be our department chairs. So in each of our buildings, we have chairs that oversee our various departments, again, including special ed, down to preschool, our electives groups. And so those individuals help facilitate our PLCs and move our initiatives that we talk about on that larger scope, but kind of tailoring that down to, in their world, how can they implement that plan into their daily teachings and work with their students. So they work in communication with me so that we can get our message out and have consistent messaging and implementation across the district. We also have our MTSS team, which I spoke to, that we just met with our ISD consultant. So variety of members there, myself, our ECC director, we have an MTSS coach and special ed teacher, behavior interventionist, elementary counselor, assistant principal. So taking a variety of viewpoints so that when our district implementation team for MTSS gets together to evaluate how are we doing in our systems of support, that we're factoring in all levels of support. So we don't just want a teacher lens, but how our support staff, how can we better support that? How is that truly being implemented at those various levels? And then we also have coaches for each building. So again, just drawing in all those different perspectives and being able to take that work, bring it both ways to the district level, but then also bring it down to the building levels. Another piece that I've been working on is creating a district-wide assessment protocol. So yes, we've had our assessments in place, but just being able to have a transparent place where we can see when are the different times we're assessing our students across the district and how are we doing that. So you know, making sure we don't have to keep revisiting how are we going to do this at this grade level or this grade level, but we just know this is our consistent process and we can track that over time, and that's going to help with our data analysis when we know exactly how we've implemented and administered assessments, including what does our EL support look like and how are we being consistent with that across the district. Another piece, I spoke to the core curriculum review cycle. So yes, we've reviewed curriculum over the years. I know you have, many of you have approved curriculum over the years, but just being transparent and very deliberate in our process, trying to have some transparency to what are our steps, when are we doing these things. So this just shows our core curriculum courses, graduation required, are listed here. This could probably be a 4 or 5 page document if I wanted it to be, but our electives also function on a different cycle. So those are also reviewed, but not on necessarily this 5-year cycle, as maybe they're not all offered every year. They might be alternate years based on student need, what they sign up for, things like that. So for example, we have 2 this year that we're working on. We have a pilot going on in ELA in the middle school, as well as science in the middle school. So you know what that looks like. We have 2 different vendors that our teachers are trialing their resources within this first semester, and they have training from those vendors. We work closely with them. We also have some consultants from the ISD assisting in that process. They will review it, and then you should be getting hopefully a request for an adoption come in the spring, that if we can find that, you know, one has met our needs and meets our essential standards and it's what we want to move forward with. So those are going on right now in the middle school. And then also just kind of with that clarity piece and updating, a lot of, you know, there's a lot of good things we have been doing and keeping those moving forward, but then some of it is just refining or updating and some is creating new. So variety of things going there, but another example of something is just creating an updated version of our review process, so including, sorry, it does not want to work right now. We'll just go this way then. But timelines for when teachers need to submit and who it's going to be submitted to, so that's all detailed out here for teachers if they want to request a study form, so that we know what's going on throughout the district. You don't have pockets of things, going on, and because someone has an interest, they pursue it, but a very systemized way of saying, this is something we think our students would be interested in, this would be good for our schools, and bringing that idea, and then we work through a process. So this is, I won't have you read through all of these, but going through the whole process down to what is the proposal, including will we have a pilot, how does it tie to our standards, and just moving them through that timeline in a very concrete way. And then another, big initiative that we have been working on over the last year has been our PLC process. So yes, this system and structure is up and running, and so continuing to work on alignment, collaboration. It's all meant to be data-driven and continuous. So as part of that work, we're going to be moving into a unified curriculum map. So K-12, we're going to work to have a common system where we're noting this. And so that's really going to help with, if I'm a third grade teacher and I'm trying to understand what's happening below and above me, staff can go to a simple spot where they'll be able to click on and see ELA, second grade, fourth grade, where are we at? What standards are we hitting on? What is your unit alignment? What assessments are we using? So it's really going to be one-stop shop for getting us aligned. So that is something we'll be working on over the course of the year. You'd love everything to be a, 1 week, 1 meeting and done. It takes time to build it and to do it right. And so we're going to be working on making sure that we have that viable curriculum, we're assessing it, and that we're all know where we're headed and keep that nice and aligned. So that is just kind of a glimpse as to some of the things that we're covering out of the curriculum office. And at the end of it all, it's about supporting our staff and students and growing each student. And everything we do, we want to make sure we're funneling back to that idea. So that is our school improvement and continuous improvement is focused on that. So, any questions?
I have a question. I don't know if it's going to sound dumb, but in the past, when I've tried to help my kids at home, it's been a little difficult now that they don't usually bring the books home. So my question as a parent and a board member is are we at a point yet where we can provide the links for the curriculum so that parents can click? Is that something that's provided and I'm just not aware of?
It's probably content dependent. Sometimes there are links available that can be shared. Sometimes the access to them is different and they have to access it through their student account that it links in through. If John Dombrowski was here, he could probably explain that part better than I could. But sometimes there are restrictions on how students can access different things, or I'm sure it's from companies on trying to protect their content,
Sure.
To a certain level. So.
Do we buy the license for that, like for when we adopt a curriculum?
Again, probably depend on what's offered by the company and by content. So if there was something specific, I could look into some specifics for sure, but to make a overall statement, I don't think I would be able to do that just because even just in working through this pilot and seeing the different things offered by vendors, it's very different company by company. So.
I just know that's something that's come up, for myself, but also like a lot of other parents I've talked to are just like, I wish there was a site on our page where you can click on a link for each grade and see what they're learning so we can help.
Yeah.
Makes it a little easier.
No, it's definitely an idea I can take away and see, what parts of that can we move into our vision, and because it is important to have parents. I know as a parent, when my daughter sometimes I couldn't help you with that because I have no idea what you're doing in physics, or I would need, honestly, if I read the book, I'm not sure I would know what she was doing in physics anyways, but to be able to help and support, yes, that would be a nice tool to have. We'd have to look at the accessibility, and I'm sure it would just vary by each instance.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. All right, well, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Wonders, appreciate it. All right, our next item on the agenda is committee and liaison reporting. Did we have any committees that met? I know the policy committee met. Is there any other committees that met? Okay.
You want to do a TAPRC update?
Oh, yes.
There isn't really an update. We meet Wednesday this week to discuss the draft of the 5-year plan.
Cool, thank you.
Okay, fantastic. All right, our next item under board items for action, purchase of a John Deere loader. Before we get started with this, just want to make a quick statement. If this motion passes, we're going to purchase this from a company called Greenmark Equipment. Tyler works for that company, so he has chosen and let me know that he's going to abstain from this vote. Not that he has any benefit from the school purchasing this or not, but that is his employer, so just out of respect for all parties involved, he's just going to abstain from the
Do I
vote.
have to face the wall?
Please.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. Mr. Pouch, do you have this, or is it Mark? Mark?
Yeah, I'll
Fantastic.
take this one, sorry. Yeah, so a few weeks ago, Brandon Leitz, our ground supervisor, came to us with this idea of, I'd like to buy this front loader. In this case, it's called the John Deere 244 P-Tier Compact Wheel Loader. To me, it's a giant tractor. But anyway, so that we can do all snow removal in-house. Currently, we do a lot of it, but we also outsource $51,000 a year to Harder & Warner to make sure that our lots are clean. Sometimes we have lots of snow, sometimes we barely have any. But this allows us to do it on our timeline. Also with the cost that we have of $143,348.63, the payback would be less than 3 years. John Deere tractors last much longer than 3 years, probably, I don't know. Tyler, you'd probably be able to give us a better idea, but 20 plus years, give or take. And so anyway, I asked about the feasibility of our staff being able, hey, if we take this on, you're saying we can do this in-house, I don't want to add staff. He agreed that they could do it with our current staff with limited additional overtime hours. So when we found that out, we felt very good with making this recommendation. So the $143,000 that you see in front of you, we would look to take out of our capital improvement funds. And then our contract with Harder & Warner, we have already been in discussions with them. Should this pass, that we can get out of it because we are in our last year of that. They agreed to that. So, and currently that $51,000 is in our general fund. So that would actually alleviate some concern on our general fund as we progress through this year. But that is what I have. In addition, he did say there would be additional benefits, that it can do more than just snow plowing.
Sure.
That we can use this also year-round. I also wanted to make sure we have feasibility to make sure that we keep it in good shape. Our new storage facility that we have by the Transportation Department, we can keep it in there. And, with that, Pouch and myself felt very confident that it'd be a good investment for the district long-term. So, any questions you may have?
Is there any training involved? Training to operate the machine?
Training, oh, sorry.
I'm the salesperson.
Okay.
If I can speak.
Yeah.
Training, I told Brandon and Josh that for snow that I would be there. They had came and looked at the loader and I've gone over everything with them, with it. I would be there to train, operate, show from start to finish on what to do, how to operate this piece of equipment.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Yeah, how much, cost, I guess, how much time do you guys think you spend currently, or used to, and then how much more do you think dollar-wise?
Yeah, I don't know from specific hours, but when I asked that, it seems like with this new loader, it'll be so much more efficient that it'll take out, it'll be a limited additional hours is what I gathered. Maybe 3 to 5 extra hours, maybe per snowfall, if I had to put numbers to it. It sounded very limited from additional time frame.
So no new hire?
No new hire.
Yep, correct.
Sounds like a no-brainer.
Yep, just a few extra hours. Yep.
Sorry, I missed your last question.
I was just reiterating what
So, and from what I gathered too, a lot of times, they would show up and we'd have it essentially done. So it was like, but they still charged us for a,
The seasonal
part of the
fee,
contract, 'cause
yeah.
there was only,
Yeah.
I think they could do 12 pushes or whatever they call per contract year.
Yeah.
So, we want to make sure it's on our timeline so that, if we want to have school open, and we can get to it throughout the course of the whole night, we can, where if we were with Harder and Warner, it's kind of based on their contract and their timeline of when they can get to us, even though we did a lot of it ourselves.
Yeah, the kids are not happy. The kids want more snow days, Mark, and you're alleviating this with this. By the way, are you going to be driving this thing?
No.
Are we gonna be able to use it in parade?
Okay. Any other questions for Mark? Thank you, Mark. Thank you for the insight. All right, we're looking for a motion regarding the purchase of the John Deere loader.
I motion that Board of Education approve purchase of one John Deere 244P tier compact wheel loader from Greenlarge Equipment LLC, not to exceed $143,348.63.
Second.
All right, we got a motion by Mr. Price and a second by Ms. Stanton. Any discussion on the motion? All right, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Thank you, Board. Our next item, Board Items for Action, Board Policies, Volume 39.1, Volume 39.2, the Edgar UGG, second reading. We went through these policies in our last board meeting. This is now our second reading. The policy meeting did meet to address some questions. We did make a small change. I believe Rob informed us that he reached out to Neola, and there was that one small change detailed. But Rob, do you have anything else to add on this?
Thank you, Derek. So we have a couple different things that the board may want to discuss. It'll be up to a board discussion. I did reach out to Neola, and I informed the full board that there was one policy. It was our student accident policy. It had parents, and we added guardians to that as well. The policy committee was in favor of that change. At the conclusion of the policy committee meeting, there was still some question on a set of policies, mainly our conflict of interest policy. So there's 3 policies that are part of this revision. I'm going to go ahead and hand out a paper copy because a visual will probably help, and I'm kind of speaking on behalf of the policy committee right now, so policy committee, please feel free to interrupt at any time. So, and I'm going to try to explain this the best that I can, because even from my seat, it's confusing, and I don't fully have my head wrapped around it yet either. But there was that change that I noted, and then we have policy 1130, which is conflict of interest for administration. We have 3110, which is conflict of interest for professional staff, and then we have 4110, which is conflict of interest for support staff. So some of this concern stems from the way Neola does policy. So as you'll see, all 3 of these updates are the exact same policy, and that's the way Neola provides many of their duplicate policies when it's across different sections or different categories. Other policy providers may not do it that way, but that's the way Neola does it. So the question that has come up, that is up for board discussion, is as you peruse through these policies, it's the exact same policy for administration, professional staff, and support staff. A concern that some board members had, and then the policy committee discussed and directed me to reach back out to Neola on, was essentially, without getting too deep in the weeds, why is board members, the word board members, if you look through this, I'm just looking at the front one because they're literally all the same, 1130, board members is in that policy multiple times. And the question is, why is that in there when this is an administration policy? 3110 is professional staff, 4110 is support staff. And then there's a separate conflict of interest policy 0143, don't quote me on that, that's more geared towards boards. A board, you have seen my update from Neola, and that truly is the best explanation that I can give you. If this board and/or policy committee would like a deeper explanation on that, it's going to have to come from either Neola in a face-to-face meeting, their legal firm Varnum in a face-to-face meeting, or our legal firm Truen, because I can't explain it any better than that. Their logic was they're similar but different policies. One policy is about disclaiming, like we saw tonight. The new updates are about putting a threshold to it and meeting some federal guidelines for grant monies. That's the best explanation that I feel comfortable giving. So with that, I'll turn it back over to the board. I'm happy to answer any questions or guide this process any further, but it's really at a point where I've done my portion on behalf of the policy committee, and now it's up for board discussion as far as what route they want to take.
Yes, thanks, Rob, for looking into all of this. I do understand the concern and appears to be duplication of just the same policy, different naming. But
I do want to make sure, because they didn't include our conflict of interest policy, that we have our conflict of interest policy up to date. I mean, shouldn't we have it, it should be legal. So maybe they
didn't
overlooked
request
it.
any changes.
Sorry?
They didn't request any changes for that.
Correct. So then
Neola
that-
didn't
that
request
means that
changes
it
for
is
that.
Because it already
lawful?
is specific to board members,
Yeah, and they're adding board members on
to
this
all these other
policy.
ones as well.
Yeah,
Correct. I'm saying is 0144.3, is that legal, or isn't it? Because that's the one that really applies to us, specific to board members.
I mean, it's already in place, so I would assume,
Yeah.
I guess,
Because they
it wasn't
changed
one of
all
the
this
recommended
and
changes.
added board members, so is all this within our policy? That's what I'm saying.
So I will try to answer this best I can, but I'm also the first to admit that I didn't explain it right. So my understanding in talking to Neola 2 different times on this, and again, I can confirm that the policy is up to date with the latest update. I can confirm, when I say the policy, the 0143,
Yeah, 44.3.
whatever that number one is, I can confirm that was not part of this update. So it is updated with the most recent edition Neola has put out. This is where it gets complicated, and I believe Neola to begin with anyways, but the fact that that policy is more about disclosing that there's a conflict of interest, that a board member per that policy, again, this is the way it was explained to me, so if I'm wrong, I'm sorry, I'm inferring it the best I can. That policy is about disclaiming. Tyler's a great example tonight.
Yeah.
He adhered to that policy. There was a potential conflict of interest in that action item, although really his family's not benefiting directly from it, so one could argue there's not. But we'll use it as a simple example. He followed that policy the way it was explained to me by Neola. He disclosed there's a conflict of interest. 1130s, 3130, and 4130 pertains particularly to federal awards. So now let's say, this is me shooting from the hip here, I'm going to use Mark as an example. Let's say Mark builds a bridge on our campus and his company is building it and we're paying for it with federal funds. My understanding is now 1130, 3130, and 4130 would guide that. The wonkiness of it is this is an administration, professional staff, and support staff. That's where the little disconnect comes in, is why isn't it in the zeros? We're more board stuff. That's a fine tuning of Neola. The answer probably is the more policies they update, the more they charge and the more we pay. So that would be the best simple example I can give, is one is simply just about disclosure. The other is particularly for federal funds, disclosing that, and then also putting a limitation on Mark's company giving him about $250 or whatever that cap is in there to get him this job.
Yeah, I can understand that, from the perspective you just used. A board member can be a board member. They can also be many different titles in the district, especially if that was the case in the situation. And I'll say Neola's writing this policy, not just for the TK school district, but for many school districts. So I understand the update more clearly now and why I would see them putting it in there. Is there any other questions on this policy or these set of policies?
No, I think, just to clarify, some of the concerns was when they're including board members, it's also stating, like, actions that can be taken, and the problem with that is those actions don't pertain to board members because they're elected officials. So I think it could cause confusion, but I see that the reason they put it in there was for something completely different, like it wasn't intended for that. So I think it's confusing, but it is what it is.
Is there a possibility that they just overlook that we have a conflict of interest? Like at the federal level? They got lots of things to do. I don't know.
Can't answer that.
I think what they're doing is they're
Covering all-
they're
trying
covering
to-
all the bases.
Yeah.
And they want to put this in here to abide by some federal law that maybe has been pushed onto them and gets pushed further down.
And they're helping us avoid litigation.
Yeah,
Is the bottom line.
avoid litigation and,
Your mic isn't on.
yep. But I think it just helps, like Brenda said, avoid litigation. And also, if there is a board member that wears many hats in a district, maybe not this district, but it gives you a roadmap of how to address issues like these, conflicts of interest. All right,
Hey, you looking into that?
yes, thanks, Rob.
Because I know we were all kind of.
Question that. All right, if there's no other discussion or questions, we can go ahead and entertain a motion.
Did we discuss the changes for 0311?
Which one is that, 0311?
Is that 3111?
The creating a position?
Yep,
Yep,
okay, so we're good there?
yep, we have that.
Okay.
That's part of the update here.
Okay.
Yep.
I just didn't see it, sorry, thanks.
All right, no other questions? We'll entertain a motion.
I motion that the Board of Education approve board policy volume 39.1, volume 39.2, and Edgar UGG for second reading.
Support.
We have a motion by Mr. Price and support by Mr. Winger. Any discussion on the motion? Brenda, is that a roll call?
No.
Nope, okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed?
Aye.
Okay. Motion passes. Next item for the board, items for action. So the board has been made aware. Rob and I spoke about a piece of his contract, and we all are aware of a contract amendment that has been sent out, gone through the legal team. We discussed this and tried to align the contract more with the policy, which is number 1220. So we have an item on the agenda to bring the contract more in line with the policy that we have in our board policies. That's what I have on it. If there's any questions, we can answer those, or we can entertain a motion for the amendment.
I'll make a motion that the Board of Education approve the attached amendment as presented.
I'll second.
We got a motion by Winger and support by Ms. Hilton. Any discussion on the motion? All right, that is a roll call vote.
Brock?
Yes?
Smith?
Yes.
Wanger?
Yes.
Hess, yes. Price?
Yes.
Hilton?
Yes.
Stan?
Yes.
Thank you, board. And here is another opportunity for public input. Is there anyone that would like to speak? Sure.
Timer on my.
Sure, thank you. Just before you speak, let me read this real quick, okay? Mark, if we could turn on her mic too, that'd be great. So according to the board policy 167.3, the Board of Education recognizes the value of public comment on educational issues and the importance of allowing members of the public to express themselves on district matters. Members of the public may address the Board of Education during public comment for up to 3 minutes. Speakers will be recognized by the presiding officer and asked to state their name, address, and group affiliation if applicable. As a reminder, all comments shall be directed to the board and not to staff or other participants. No participant may speak more than once. Participants may not behave in a manner that is disruptive to the orderly conduct of the meeting. The Board of Education does not respond to public comment. The superintendent will follow up with speakers when appropriate. All right, thank you. Go ahead.
All right. Thank you for your time and for your dedicated service to our community. I deeply respect the work that all of you do on the behalf of our children and the families in our district, so thank you. My name is Liz Burgess. I need to state my address. Did I hear that right?
Oh, you're
okay.
okay.
All right.
You're okay.
My husband Murray and I, we've called Middleville home for about 10 years now. We have 2 children. Gretchen, who is 8, she's in the 3rd grade at Lee, and our son Zeke will be 3 on Saturday. We both grew up here in West Michigan. Murray was in Byron Center, and I grew up in Door. I graduated from Wayland Union. So we just love being a part of this kind of rural pocket of West Michigan. And I'm here today as the program director for LifeWise Academy here in Thornapple Kellogg. We exist to positively impact students, schools, and communities by providing Bible-based character education through release time religious instruction. In today's world, our students are facing a lot, many challenges beyond their academics. Depression and anxiety are all-time highs among our youth, and our schools are working hard to support them and their mental health, along with striving for academic excellence. And our hope with LifeWise and through Release Time Religious Instruction is that we can come alongside you all as school administrators and teachers, as a supportive ally in this. And we hope to help kids build character, resilience, and give them hope. For us, it isn't just about head knowledge. It's about heart transformation. Through the gospel, students learn values that shape character, and hopefully it guides their daily choices as well. Some of the character traits that we'll be learning about this year specifically are perseverance, forgiveness, humility, compassion, and just today we learned about respect, specifically about respecting all of God's good creation, especially people. We believe that God made people in His image, and so we should see them as valuable and treat everyone with kindness and care. This school year, we expanded from serving just the 2nd and 3rd grade building, Lee, which is who we served last year, to also serving our 4th and 5th grade building, Page. We started the year just last week with 107 students. This week, we'll be serving 120, and already for the following week, we have 125 registered. Our hope is that we'll be serving upwards of 300 kids by the end of the year.
Great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for the update.
Yes.
Appreciate
Thank you.
it.
Thanks, Liz.
Would anyone else like to speak? All right, that will close our second opportunity for public comment. On to the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Mr. President. A couple thank yous to the audience members before I carry on. One, to Liz, thank you for everything you're doing for our kids and the wonderful update there, and I look forward to connecting here in the next week or two with you, so thank you. And another thank you to Megan and her department in the Curriculum Instruction and Assessment Department. A very thorough and wonderful presentation as far as what the day-to-day life looks like as the curriculum director. So thank you to Megan. That was very informative, and it was very obvious you put a great deal of time into that. And as I know, because I see you work every day, wonderful things are going on in that department. So thank you. Continuing with giving some grace and thanks, many of you were at one event or another last week for the homecoming event. There's a lot of favorite weeks of the year for me in this profession, but homecoming week is one of them, and I don't have time to thank everybody, but I know at the center of it all is Mr. Peterson and his staff and student council and all those advisors and grade level chairs that are working with our team. So that fantastic community event, from the parade to the tailgates, to the game, to the festivities at halftime Saturday, it's hundreds of hours of preparation by our staff and by our parent volunteers. And it truly is the staple of a community when you have a turnout like that. So thank you to our staff. I can't name them all right now, but if you had a chance, it's probably too late now because the decorations are down, but my office, we had the opportunity to go through the building and vote, although I hear there might have been some conspiracy theories of the group that won. Regardless, it was the best, and if they thought better than the other group, they win. So it was fun to go through and see the hard work that the kids did with their theme and the decorations. So, and then that, I had a chance to connect with the East Grand Rapids football coach later on in the weekend, because he and I go way back to when we were both coaching, and 21 years later, he's still coaching, and I'm a superintendent. So our paths went different ways. But it was very, very rewarding for me to hear him brag about our community, about my community. His comment was, that was the best environment that they've played in a long time. Your community came out to support. It was just wonderful. And it truly was. The stadium was packed. Unfortunately, the game didn't go our way, but that happens in life. You adapt and overcome and face the adversity and continue to get better week by week. So from someone who's on the outside and on the other sideline there, he had nothing but positive praise, and he could feel it as well. So that meant a lot to me when I heard that. So again, thank you to our staff, and then thank you to the board that was able to come out in the parade. Next year, we have a strategy where we will not run out of candy. We have a game plan, our central office does.
Refill
So
halfway through.
yeah, we have a
Refill
plan.
halfway through.
We didn't do very
Yeah.
good this year, so next year we'll hit a grand slam on it. So again, thank you. It's a lot of work, but that hard work doesn't go unnoticed to our high school staff. The second update I have is last week I had the opportunity to attend the TAEFE monthly meeting, and for me it's a very heartfelt meeting, because it's a time when they vote and approve on giving back to our district in a variety of ways, mainly through several grants. So I can't release all the information because it's not finalized and folks haven't been noticed yet, but we had a very good number of our staff members apply for grants. Unfortunately, not all of them could get granted, but that's a good problem. That means people are applying, but they were able to move on in the process. Several wonderful things that are going to have a positive impact on kids, extension of the classroom, the building and creating that we have here. So it was my pleasure to sit in on that meeting, and I thank them on behalf of the Board of Education that they give us a monthly spot at the table, simply just to brag about the good things that are going on in our district. So once they roll that out, I'll update the board, but I don't want to steal their thunder, but it was my pleasure getting to sit in that meeting and just see the wonderful things that our teachers have going on. Throughout our weekly reports, I've shared numerous things from no information to now an abundance of information on the state budget. And Mark could talk a lot longer than I. He gets more passionate than I do about it. But I want to hit on a few of just the quick hitters, because a lot of times in these situations, the headlines will always look good and not necessarily speak to the impact of how it's impacting our district. So overall, it is a positive budget from the state. Would have been much better if we would have had it by July 1st, so we could have planned accordingly, but our associations are going to do everything they can to make sure that doesn't happen again, but ultimately it's out of our control. But the one thing I do want to note is that you'll see a lot of bragging by the legislative bodies, which we're very, very thankful for, of record increases in the foundation allowance and spending in schools, which is true. They have approved a foundation allowance of $10,050. What you don't see until you go through the 500-page document is what expenditures that they've helped us out with and revenues they've given us that has been cut. So for example, it kind of was hit on with our budget presentation tonight, but the MIPSPERS retirement piece, without getting too complicated with it, essentially we are losing almost $247,000 that we are not getting that's been promised to us in previous years. So when I subtract that, that's about $81 per kid. What was a $442 record investment foundation allowance, right there drops to $361. So headlines are great, we're very appreciative, but I also want the community and board to be aware that when you see $442 per kid, right off the top with just one line item that's been cut, we're down to $361 already. And there's some other smaller things that we're learning that haven't been carried over also. We are thankful that the food program is continuing at least for one more year. They did note that this is a one-time fund. Everything's really a one-time fund though, so I don't know if they're setting the stage for the following year or what. So overall, a good budget, but I did want the board to know that it's not quite as reported because there's always some deeper information that needs to be vetted through. But overall, a good budget. The next item that we have is our staff has really been working since August on our strategic planning monitoring. So in August at our leadership retreat, all of our departments took the strategic plan and we broke it down into the past 2 years, all the new initiatives that support the strategic plan. That's one piece of it. The second piece we worked on last week at our leadership meeting was getting a 5 to 6 question survey ready to go, because we're at that midway point of a strategic plan. And if we're gonna brush the dust off it and it's gonna be our driver, we need some updated information on that to help drive our boat in the right direction and help make sure we're making the right choices, because things changed from 2 years ago. The goals are great, but the action items might change. So with that, we are putting the final touches on our strategic planning monitoring tool. That will be a survey, again, 5 to 7 questions, open-ended, where we hope to get some qualitative and quantitative measures to really give back to us so I can work with the board and then get direction from the board and work with my team on what's next. Where do we go? What are those important items to our community that we need to address? So I'm really looking forward to that, because that's that next piece of me working with you on where are we going the next 2 to 5 years, and let's get plans in place to address that. So as always, I'll share it with the board before we send it out to our stakeholders, but we're timing it with the next key issue where there'll be some notes in there about it. So early November, we want that window to be open, end of October into early November. Hopefully then bringing back data. November might be too tight, but the December, January board meetings and planning accordingly. Also in the past several board updates, I've had little blurbs about the FFA barn update. However, as of last week, we have come to a point where I can give more of a formal update. So what I'm passing to you, sorry, Mark, you don't get one. Oh, I lied, you do. What I'm passing to you is a comprehensive update on where we are at with the FFA barn. So I would ask that you stay with me here before you read through this, otherwise you might lose some of the things that I say. I first want to backtrack on what got us here. About a year ago, the Board of Education approved roughly about $147,000 to build an FFA barn. That is what went to bid and what was approved. So the barn itself was a cold barn, a shell of a barn, and it had about $25,000 worth of other items included in it. So when it went to the board, that is what the board approved. When I got here in end of June, officially started in July, did the groundbreaking ceremony, a wonderful thing for our community, but as we went to start building it, we found out that we don't have any permits and we don't have any of the documents required to get the permits. We are a school. We have different building operational codes and procedures that we have to follow versus a farm or a homestead or anybody else that wants to build something. Particularly if students are going to be in it, you have a whole nother layer of metrics that you have to meet. So once we found that out, we basically had to hit the reset button on the project. That's when, I believe it was the August meeting, I came to the board. We went into closed session to review attorney-client information on the next steps, and the board opted to move forward with what was approved, which was roughly the $147,000. So since then, we've been working 100 miles an hour to try to get this thing built as soon as possible for our folks. The biggest hiccup to get permits is you have to have licensed drawings by a licensed architect. So that means the barn that we already had purchased needs to have licensed drawings that will meet the permitting requirements for schools. We're able to purchase those through the manufacturer of the barn. However, we do not have any electrical drawings. So we had to get a company to put all this together, because we're not in the position where we serve, although we do wear hats as construction managers, it's a full-time job, and we're not in a position to oversee this. So I've kept the board updated that we're working with Performance Services for very, very cheap to pull all this together for us, basically $5,000 to oversee the project and another hourly rate to get these electrical drawings, because they have to be from their electrical engineer for the electrical. So what you'll see in front of us is, I'm not going to go through it word for word. Again, just like the audit, this is your reading material when you get home later tonight. But this is the project and timeline. The project includes the construction of a new cold storage barn located on our property to the northwest of here. You'll see it, the earthwork that's been done there. The construction shall commence late 2025 or early 2026 and be completed by next summer, July 31st, 2026. So it's one of those things that essentially is out of our hands. The next step is, once the electrical drawings get done, they will then compile all the paperwork for the permitting. They will get the permits, which have to go through the state, which I have been told can take up to 4 months. Maybe it could be quicker. It's a pretty simple project. So right there is just the services that we're getting from Performance Services to oversee the project, and then also they're going to do the electrical designs. More importantly, the second page. I think it's important, and I have shared this with Mr. Peterson, and he has shared it with his FFA staff. This is what the board approved back in December of last year for this project. And this is what we discussed in closed session a couple months ago. So I'm not going to go through it word by word, but this community and you folks know, Mark referenced it already, what a cold barn is. Essentially, the bid covered the shell of the barn with about $25,000 of doors and some other really miscellaneous expenses at that time. At that time, you'll notice where it says future project. The original bid put out by the board did not cover these roll-up doors, did not cover interior counters, painting, bathrooms, concrete slab, paved parking lots, plumbing, and different lighting and septics and such. So yes, we have a very generous community that is willing to maybe donate some of these when the time is right. However, we can't take a bunch of donations right now to do this project without going to bid. So anything that we add to this project, let's say bathrooms, for example. Bathrooms were not part of the original scope. You can't separate them because the entire project is over the bid threshold of, I think it's $36,000 now. So anything that we add would have to be bid out. And that could be a deterrent for maybe some of these folks that want to donate stuff, because there's different insurances and different bonds you have to have when you bid things. So these can all be added on in the future when this first phase of the scope of work is done. And then the question hits my desk, you know, where did we get to the point where it had plumbing and parking lots and all those pieces? Great ambitions and dreams of a beautiful barn that could be someday, but we're just not there yet. And thankfully, we have a community that may help us get there someday. But we do have to keep in mind that the board established a vision that this is an extracurricular barn. This is not being built with the intentions of being a classroom. If it were, that would be over a $1 million facility with infrastructure for security, internet, fire suppressants. Everything that this room has and this building has handicap accessible, that building would have to have too. So we have to be very, very careful what we're saying it's used for. FFA is an extracurricular activity here. It is an extracurricular space for our FFA program, that at times internally, they may go down there occasionally throughout the year. So hopefully this helps provide any questions that the board may be getting, because I think there's some folks in our community, rightfully so, that expected a barn to be built and kids in it by now. And unfortunately, along the way, a few steps were missed. We did put a communication letter out to the FFA board and their close advisors, end of the summer, early fall, providing them an update as well. So I'm happy to take any questions from the board if there are any on an update on the barn.
Just one question. Obviously, we wouldn't have plumbing and so forth, but to use a barn for any animals, you have to have water for them. So at what point would water be available for animals?
Great question. The question is, we need water. We certainly do, and the intention is for that to be a future project, so it's not part of this original, and I have to be very careful, because if you're intending on doing work down the road and you're very prescriptive about it, that vendors could claim that that work was intentionally overlooked throughout the bid process. So we got to be very careful what we say we are and aren't going to do in the future. But we have had that discussion, but we've been advised that right now to keep that off the scope of work, and when this scope of work is complete, then pursue getting water in there.
So what exactly is going out to bid?
So the question was, what exactly is going out to bid? The project has already been put out to bid. Mark and I found it deep in some paperwork. I'm not going to quote on behalf of that, but the barn itself, and I don't recall what else was in there, Mark, you can pick up in a minute if you think you remember. So that's already been gone out to bid. What's going out to bid right now will just be the electrical bid package, whatever it entails to get electrical from the road into the building and all of the outlets. So that'll be the only bid that we'll be coming to you with, hopefully in the next couple months.
And when, who's the company that we hired?
Performance Services.
When are they putting it out to bid?
We just signed the contract with them Thursday, Friday of last week. So now they're electrical engineers. We don't have any plans. So they're really doing us a favor because although we're paying them, they obviously have other projects that they're squeezing this in on. So once they get the electrical drawings done, because we have no drawings, they have to work with S&E to get the drawings of the building and then make the electrical drawings. Then after that, they'll create the bid pack for us, and then we'll put it to bid. So I'm hoping sooner than later, but I also hate to put a timeline on it, and I say 3 weeks, and it ends up being 6 weeks.
Do you happen to know what bid platform they're using?
I can find out. They are going to let us know. They will be reviewing it with us before it goes to bid. So and we'll review the drawings. We'll do a sit down and go through all the drawings. Not that I understand much about electrical drawings, but they definitely will review it with us. So more to come on that.
Is there a source of water within walking distance?
The question is there a source of water within walking distance? I don't know. Can we do a well? I don't know. Do we have to tap into, there's obviously water there somewhere because we have the bus garage to the west. We have this, we have houses. So there's water there somewhere, but right now there's not, I'll use simple terms, there's not a spigot. There's no water anywhere, I'm going to say within walking distance.
There's
The
a
bus
water
garage.
tower
We
right
can
there.
run a hose from the water tower,
was thinking
straight up
gravity
and
fed.
right down, yeah.
Let's get thrifty.
Yeah, I think we have some other challenges we have to overcome first, and then we can hopefully move on to future projects. The barn.
Any other questions with the barn? Otherwise, I will move on.
Thank you for the update.
Yeah, thanks.
The last item before some reminders and update is we have a big day coming up for all schools in Kent Intermediate School District. So as you all know, Thornapple Kellogg Schools is a member of KISD, Kent Intermediate School District. And on November 4th, there will be an item on the ballot which will be asking all residents within Kent ISD, which is us. That gets confusing just because the northern portion of our district is in Kent ISD. But all of our district will get this ballot if they're in our district boundaries. And what Kent ISD is asking for on behalf of the local districts is to renew the enhancement millage that has been benefiting schools for roughly about 10 years. So without getting too nitty-gritty, this was kind of referenced in the financial audit today too. From this enhancement millage, we get over $1 million that goes directly back to technology, lighting, infrastructure. We've done auditorium upgrades, other facility enhancements. We did some work at the bus garage. We've done some foyer work. The list is endless. But for us, this board is well aware, we basically take that money and put it into a capital improvement fund to keep our facilities gorgeous. So if this does not pass, that will essentially be $1 million hit that our capital improvement projects would take the grunt of that hit. So there's information here. I'll get on the table before you leave. I encourage you to grab some. Absentee ballots are already out. It is a renewal. The ballot language is above my intellectual level to be able to explain because they have it broken down into, Mark could explain it better than I can, but all in all, it's a renewal of what was originally asked back 10 years ago, but they had to break it down in the ballot a little bit differently, which unfortunately kind of confuses people. But it is a renewal, it's not an increase. So hopefully, if you have that ballot sitting at home, if you do the absentee, or if you get out on November 4th, you can get out and vote on the enhancement millage. And we, over the course of the next 3 weeks, will start putting information out on social media. There's some on our website. We've done a little bit, and we'll start getting more information out to our folks. Any questions on the enhancement millage? Last items I have is just a couple updates and reminders. If you recall, we had 2 Board of Education workshops scheduled, one for October 20th and one for November 3rd. We talked at the superintendent evaluation tool about canceling the November 3rd one, and the superintendent evaluation will take place in December. And then Mr. President and I have spoken a few times about the October 20th date. That was reserved as a placeholder back in July for MLI and Andy Engel to come in and do a board workshop, but no dates. Andy actually is out of town the majority of this month, and then after talking to President Brock, there was no dates that worked, so we opted to start fresh at the start of the year and see if we can't get him in. So I am recommending that we formally put notice and we cancel those 2 workshops unless the board still wants to meet. I will happily meet with you.
Yeah, Andy, by the time Andy was available, we were getting into the holiday season and such, and I didn't want to, that meeting with Andy will be fantastic when we have it, but I didn't see a need for it right now. So if we get through the holidays and such, then we can have that workshop meeting when he's available. So I think we're okay to cancel that unless someone else has an opinion.
Okay, a couple students out there, it looks like, not sure if they're part of YAC. Nope. What's coming up for YAC on October 18th? Do you know that? Who said that? A+ student for the day. Nice job. Yes, just a plug for YAC. There was a student leader at the TAEF meeting, and they do have their roof sit. Although, as I've learned, it's not really a roof sit anymore. It has morphed into a little bit different look than 20 years ago sitting on roofs. So,
yeah, please don't put our students on the roof.
No, not a good idea anymore. So I believe, my understanding, learning about the event, they'll be at some 4 corners between here and Hastings, I believe it is. So there's other ways to donate. So if you have the opportunity, support our YAC kids as they got their annual roof sit. Also, personally, I would like to invite the board to any of the upcoming fall events that we have. President Brock just hit on it, but notably, before we meet next time in November, October 20th, we have our choir and bands concert, so I'll continue to give reminders on that, but looking forward to taking in an evening of the arts. And then on November 7th and 8th, we have our fall play, which is a trip to the moon. So I would personally invite you to check those out. We are looking forward to those events, a chance to showcase some of the wonderful arts that we have going on around our district. So subsequent to any questions, that does conclude my board report.
Thank you, Rob. Did you have a question? Sure.
I believe there was supposed to be a flood proposal.
Yep. Well, how about we talk to you right after the meeting? Does that sound good? Thank you. Any board comments that you'd like to make? All right. Thank you again to Mark and your team, and got an A+ on the year from Jeff. That's great. Hopefully we can remove that draft soon and get it moving forward, but I know sometimes that's out of everyone's hands until the federal government makes up its mind. So, all right, meeting adjourned at 8:30. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.